Hi everybody, welcome back. This is our 7th week. I cannot believe it. When I started this, 6 weeks ago, I never thought I would be doing it every week, but I really enjoyed it and I've got a lot of good feedback. So today I've decided that we've done sauces, we've done pasta, we've done meat sauces, we've done cookies, so why not try our hand at bread? So I'm not very good at bread. I have to confess, when I started my culinary training, one of my first courses was with baking with yeast, and I was very intimidated. My mom's a great baker, and she had made homemade bread and cream puffs and all that stuff, but I was a little bit skeptical. So I kind of took a few minutes and spoke with one of my good friends, Antoinette, last night, and she helped me through it step by step. So I think I got it down pat for you guys today. I actually spent yesterday making a focaccia, and it turned out pretty good. So I'm pretty sure we're going to do well today. So every week we've been getting things out of the pantry, and they've only been just a few ingredients that everybody pretty much has. The only thing this week that might have been difficult was the yeast, and that's because for some reason everybody's buying yeast right now. I guess everybody's trying to bake, which is a good thing. So if you don't have the yeast, you know, obviously you can't make it, but when things go back to normal and it's back on the shelves, please try this recipe because it's quick and easy and delicious. So the 5 ingredients are flour, of course, the yeast, oil, salt, and we're going to put rosemary in ours just for the flavoring. So if you don't like rosemary, you don't have to put it in. I find that it is an acquired taste. So, like I said, you could just leave that out. I'm also going to be making the bread in a KitchenAid mixer with a dough hook because this is the easiest way to do it. You can do it by hand, of course, mix it all together, but it's quite messy at first. So why not use the dough hook when we have one? It works wonderful. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our wet ingredients together. We have to get the yeast going so that it cultivates with the warm water and stuff, so it takes a couple minutes to start bubbling. I find that it is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get 1/3 of a cup of warm water. And I have it warming on the stove here already, and I'm going to pour it in. And the trick with this now is it has to be 110 degrees. So again, this is our liquid measuring cup here. So that should be at 1 1/3 cups. Am I right, Abs? Yep. Okay. And just to be sure, because if the water is too hot, the yeast will die. And if it's too cold, also it will not work. So this is just a little cooking thermometer. You can buy them anywhere. Walmart, Food Line has them in their cooking departments. It's digital. So we're just going to watch the temperature go up. Hopefully it should reach 110. If not, we can add a little bit more hot water in here. Might have to add a little bit more hot water. Oh, yep. All right, let me get a little bit, be right there. Almost ready. Okay. Sorry about that, guys, but this really is a very, very important step to this. The water has to be just right, or it's just not going to work out right. So I'm adding a little bit more in here to bring the temperature up to 110, but then we're going to remeasure it, remember, back down to 1/3 of a cup. And that's why it's important to have one of these thermometers. It's great for meats and everything, you know, because you don't want to, at the holidays, you can't tell if your turkey's done, you don't have that little popper thing, which really you shouldn't have. You really shouldn't use those. Okay, so we're pretty much up there. Alrighty, so now I'm going to turn this off. So now I'm going to remeasure back down to 1 1/3 cups. Who would think that the water would be the hardest part? Pretty good, Ab?
Yep,
All
that's
right.
good.
We're going to put this water now right directly into our mixing bowl. And to this, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar. If you don't have sugar, you can also use honey. My son used to make the pizza here, and he's an amazing pizza chef. He actually won an award for the state of South Carolina, and he would use honey instead of sugar. So we're going to put in 2 teaspoons of sugar. And then on top of that now, we're going to use the yeast. And the reason why the yeast is in this, if you have the packet, 2 1/4 teaspoons equals 1 of those packets, I believe. So we happen to get ours in a big block. Yeast comes in different variations. You can get a wet yeast or you can get a dry, but we want the dry active yeast. So I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of this, and I'm just gently going to put it over the top of the water, and we're going to put another one. Okay, and then I have to have that 1/4 teaspoon. And just like I've always said with baking, measurements have to be exact, and that's why a lot of people don't like to bake. There's really no room for mistakes when you're baking and using measurements. Okay, so we're gonna let that sit for a minute, and what we want to see here is in a few minutes we want to see it bubbling up. I actually can probably stir it around a little bit just to get that yeast going. Get it off the sides. Okay. And this is the actual dough hook. KitchenAid comes with it. If you don't have one, it's a little difficult to make the bread, and that you can't use a whip or anything like that. It just won't work. It's got to have this bar that comes down to roll it into the ball formation. So I'm just going to clip it on here, and I'm going to wait now. This is probably going to take about 5 minutes for this to start bubbling. You'll see it get like a foamy head on the top of it. So in the meantime, we'll go ahead and we'll get our dry ingredients going. So I need 3½ cups of flour. When I looked up basic recipes for focaccia bread, there was bread flour and self-rising flour and all-purpose flour. So I figure everybody has all-purpose flour in their closet or their pantry, so why not stick with that? Okay, so we're going to measure out 3½ cups of flour. So we're going to use the dry measuring cups again. And let me get out my half one. So I have 3½. And I'm going to, remember, with anything dry, you have to make sure it's level. So that's 1. Right now in the stores, trying to find any kind of flour or any type of baking thing has been really, really difficult. I mean, I'm glad to hear that people are baking and stuff. I like to see some of the stuff that people are baking. Okay, here's the 3rd cup. And just gonna kind of level this off. Okay. All right, and then we got to get our half. I can put the recipe up in my on my Facebook page. I just basically showed you the ingredients that we would be needing, but now I'm actually going to put the recipe up for you if you guys want it. Focaccia bread is basically almost like a pizza dough. It's thick and it's a little bit crusty on the outside, and the inside is light and airy. It's really, really good, and in Italy they use it for sandwiches. So over here we have different kind of bread for sandwiches. We use that thin white bread and stuff, but guaranteed if you try focaccia bread with a sandwich, you would love it. You could toast it, you could put jelly on it for breakfast. Has a lot of different uses for it. Okay, so we have our flour in here. Now we have to do salt. And the salt is 2 teaspoons, okay? So let's see. We're gonna get our 2 teaspoons of salt over here. I'm just gonna bring the bowl with me. And I hope you guys have been getting out and like supporting your local restaurants. There's patio dining now, which is exciting because maybe you wouldn't have sat out in a patio before, before all this happened. I mean, we had to make do. We put a couple tables outside right now, and we've had people enjoying the weather. It's not been too hot now, and the breeze. We have lights out there, so it's actually a change of scenery. It's a little bit of a transition, but we're getting used to it, and we're starting to enjoy it. All right, so I have my flour and my salt all combined together. And let's see, because you don't want to put the salt directly in there because salt kills yeast. So just remember that. If you make a mistake and you put the salt instead of the sugar, you need to throw it all out and you need to start all over again. So while this is still bubbling up, and it is starting to bubble, Abs, you can show them that in there. It's starting to get bubbly. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee. I put a little frangelica in there today, I'm not gonna lie. I've been up since 5:30. I wanted to show you guys the one I made yesterday. This was the very first one I had made in a long time. So what I had done is this is the same exact recipe. I did it in a square pan. Today I'm gonna do it in a round. But I had put sun-dried tomatoes on before I baked it, and I realized that probably wasn't the best idea. So that's why I called Antoinette, and she said to me, you know, because these burn on the top. So I can't put it in the dough because then it'll weigh it down. So there's so many tricks to baking. That's what I'm saying. It kind of intimidates me a little bit, but this is basically the focaccia bread. And when I brought it in last night, everybody immediately cut it and dove into it. I was going to actually show you the whole tray, but this is what I'm left with. And I have to say, it's really good. So this is what you're going to end up with from this recipe, actually, and more. So right now, this is bubbling up. So I'm pretty sure we can go ahead and we can put our dry ingredients in here. We're going to add them just a little bit at a time. So I'm going to turn the mixer on very low, and I'm going to drop this in. And at first it's going to seem like really dry because remember all it has is that third cup of water. Okay, so we're done with that, but we're not done with adding. We need to add 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. So I like to use, 100% like pure olive oil. You got to get the good flavoring in the bread because focaccia itself doesn't have much flavor. So we're going to do 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. And I'm just going to put that in to the mixer while it's going. Be careful, don't get your fingers near there. And look at the ball it's making already. I did nothing to it. Nothing at all. And we're just going to let that go for like 5 minutes or so. And it's pulling from the sides, which is always a good sign. Because if it's becoming wet and separating, then you have too much oil and stuff in there, and you'll have to add a little more flour. So it becomes a ball, and after you let this go for a few minutes, I want to show you what it becomes. So you would take that bowl out, put it down into the bowl, and then it has to be covered and put in a warm place for at least a half an hour. At least a half an hour. It has to double its size. So whatever size ball that you put in there has to be doubled. And then you would punch it down, and then it becomes dough like this. So I punched it down, and I put it in this round pan now. And I greased the sides of it and everything, and I pushed it all down, and this is how much it rose already. So I've already done all my fingerprinting in there, and it's all nice and thick now. So what I want to do is, I put a tiny bit of rosemary in my flour mixture before because I just wanted to see how it would taste. But what we can do now, we can decorate the top of this before we bake it. So I want to just take, I learned that you don't put the sun-dried tomatoes on this itself because they will burn. So what we can do is we can put a couple of fresh tomatoes on. And I never knew this, but when I think about it, it makes sense because these will bake on top of this, and then they will, the flavor will go down into the bread, and it's just going to be amazing. So we can make this pretty. These are just cherry tomatoes. If you don't have cherry tomatoes, you can use whatever tomatoes you want to. And we're just gonna press them down into all over. We can try to make a pattern here. Let's see if you can see in the light better. It's not very bright in here today. And this would be good for your kids to do. I mean, get them involved with cooking. This is very easy. And these are the tricolored cherry tomatoes. They have great flavor. We actually use them for our caprese salads. We just started doing it actually, and everybody loves it. It just gives it a whole pretty look. Okay, so we're gonna fill in the rest here. You could do a lot of things. You could slice a purple onion very thin, and you could put that on top. You could, you know, put the tomatoes in the shape of, you know, a flower, put that on the top. Today they're doing so many different things with the top of focaccia. I was really surprised. So that's pretty much what it's gonna look like. And then we're gonna put some more rosemary on it. And I wanted to show you, if you weren't familiar with fresh rosemary, this is fresh rosemary. This is actually from my garden at home, and I love it. Sometimes I just cut the sprigs of it like this and put it on a vase in my kitchen, and it just smells so good. It's got a very strong aromatic flavor to it, or smell to it. It's a little bit piney. So what you want to do is you just want to go backwards on here. It actually feels like a pine tree, pine needles. And you just want to pull them back like this, and they'll come right off the stem. The top has the softest ones on there, so we keep that. We probably don't need too much more because it has a strong flavor to it, so it will overpower. And we're just going to kind of put them together and cut these. If you've never cut a fresh herb like this, you put them together and hold your knife. Now this is my brand new knife I bought myself, and this is my brand new cut that I just got for my new knife, so be careful. You just take the tip of your knife and put it on the cutting board, and that's never gonna lift up. You're just gonna go down, keep rocking your knife like this, and it's going to cut all these herbs for you. And then you can hold it like this and go back and forth. See, but this tip never ever moves. So we're just gonna, you can hear them crunching down. Okay, careful. And then what we can do next, so what we're going to sprinkle these on the top. Look how pretty this is, and it's not even baked yet. Okay, and now the most important thing is actually for the top of it again, so that it gets nice, a brown crust. It's gonna be a little bit crispy on the top, and then inside you have that really soft bread. Abs, can you give me my olive oil? We're going to put it on the top again, because after it bakes, this is what's really gonna make it nice and brown. So we're just gonna put it on the top of it like this. Okay, and then we're gonna take some coarse salt. You could have sea salt. I happen to have kosher salt. You know, this is what we have in the restaurant. We use it all the time. And you can even sprinkle that on the top. This is gonna be really pretty. We have a couple batches already made, so we're going to actually, maybe if you want them you want to eat them tonight, you can call the restaurant and order them with your meal, a little bit of focaccia, and this is ready to go. Isn't this beautiful? It's like a masterpiece. I'm actually impressed myself. Like I said yesterday, I made a mistake. I put the sun-dried tomatoes on top, and they did burn, and yes, I do burn things once in a while. So I'm just going to put this in a 400-degree oven, and it's going to cook for at least 35 minutes, because this is thick. This is a thick pan, and that's what you want for focaccia. You don't want it really thin, because it just doesn't have that same chewiness to it when it comes out. So I'm going to put this in the oven down here. It's going to be delicious. Careful, it's hot. And then I'm going to take one of these pieces that we had, just so you can see it again. And I will take this out of the mixer. I'm gonna put it in here and I'm gonna let it proof again for 20 minutes. Just so you guys know, it's got to double in size. Once that doubles in size, you punch it down and you put it in the pan you're going to bake with. It could be square, it could be heart-shaped, anything you want. I just happen to pick the round one, and then do what I did. After that, you have to let that proof again till it doubles its size. So this is why I really have a hard time with baking. I have no patience because I want instant gratification. That's why I like to cook. I like to see it happening. I like to taste it. I like it to be done. But baking takes time. It takes patience. But I promise you, you're going to enjoy this. So I got my coffee here, like I said, my friend Angelica, and I'm probably going to have a little piece this afternoon. So this is the focaccia. This is how nice and thick it turns out. The brown crust, it's soft, and it's ready to eat.